For the better part of a year, myself and the VGS team have been excited for developing content with and hopeful for a new game from Bioware, probably our collectively favorite video game developers, Mass Effect Andromeda. It was a game series that all three of us, really, really loved. And Andromeda came out, unfortunately, it was very heartbreaking. It didn't provide a lot of the things it promised. It fell off the wagon on a lot of other common staples of the game series in terms of story writing, in terms of character development, just didn't do that. But the most shocking thing had to be the visual fidelity.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything. And right now, I just want to know what happened with
Mass Effect Andromeda.
So that is our question today. What happens with Mass Effect Andromeda? Andy Burkowski, Anton Mack, and Jesse 2 here. Almost immediately, that's of course a reference to a character Addison in this game that has some of the worst facial animations that a AAA titled game has. Not a game from 2007, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That works, but it didn't come together, it didn't look great, and it became kind of the lightning rod, the fulcrum for people that were upset about what this game does. Some people got upset in ways that maybe they shouldn't have. They sent threatening remarks to someone that had identified as an animator at BioWare, which is just, it makes everyone here look bad when you do want to have honest criticism about something, when someone that also might agree with your position takes it to the point where they threaten a human being. So we would never advocate for that. But since that time, there's a great article in PC Gamer and other publications that have really analyzed who is to blame for this animation problem. Why did it happen, kind of? We don't have an official response from BioWare, but Jesse, PC Gamer, reached out and was able to talk to, or at least comment on, someone that has a little bit of insider knowledge, right?
Yeah, Jonathan Cooper, who posted a pretty massive 15-tweet thread on Twitter. He was a former BioWare animator and is currently an animator at Naughty Dog. Mm-hmm. And he had a lot to say on the whole thing. And his standpoint on people kind of going out there and witch hunting individual animators that they feel were almost responsible for this is, to quote him, "Just as we credit a team and not an individual for a game's success, we should never single out one person for a team's failures." Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important because, like, when people go on these witch hunts, it makes us look really bad, right? As gamers, it makes us look terrible. It puts us in this awful light.
So what else did he have to say about why this happened?
He also had to say, again, quoting his Twitter, that the lowest quality scenes in the game might not even be touched by the hands of an animator, and that to cover this, an algorithm is used to generate baseline quality scenes. And as such, it's designers, not animators, who sequence pre-created animations together like DJs with samples and tracks.
Very interesting. So just to continue with that, we'll hear more from what Cooper had to say there. There's another great talk, roundtable talk from a bunch of animators from First Strike Games. Tim Boreal said something very similar, that instead of creating custom animations per line of dialogue and acting choice of VO talent, they're likely creating phoneme shapes, the A, E, I, O, U, so the emotional shapes of a face, of the upper and lower face sections, the body language animations at various intensity levels, and then that is given to a designer to script. So it's not what we would traditionally think of how you make video game development. You know, you think of someone animating like, I made this face and it's going to work in this way. Instead, it seems like the tools used, because making games is such an arduous and complicated process, that they have an algorithm and a system of tools that can just be glossed over a variety of situations. Is there anything else that Cooper had to say that kind of speaks to this?
Yeah, actually. He said that a lot of people have been drawing comparisons since he used to work for Bioware and now he works for Naughty Dog. People were like, well, Uncharted 4, that had incredible animations, right? Why couldn't Mass Effect Andromeda live up to those? And he says, again, quoting his Twitter, that conversely, RPGs offer a magnitude more volume of content and importantly, player story choices. It's simply a quantity versus quality trade-off. Mm-hmm. So like you said, there's so much in the game that they have to be doing, right? So to create those simple AEIOUs and just to weave them into the game, if players want all that content, they're going to have to make some obvious trade-offs because they don't have the time to be doing that. Mm-hmm. And to touch on that too, he also says that in Mass Effect 1, we had over 8 hours of facial performance, and in Horizon Zero Dawn, it got up to around 15. And player expectations are only growing.
Yeah, Mocap. And Anton, you and I were deep into that game. That seems about right.
Yeah, like...
a 15 hours of scenes of faces. And that game even had some facial issues in terms of lip sync being off. But it's night and day, isn't it, between that and Andromeda?
Between the two, I would much rather be playing Horizon Zero Dawn for the story and facial animations versus Mass Effect Andromeda, which was kind of sad because the expectation is that, you know, we should have something great. It's kind of sad because you mentioned this at the start of the segment that in 2007 this will be fine, but back in 2007 when the first game came out, that game looks so much better.
Yeah, well, they used mocap for these interpersonal scenes. You were either talking to Turians or different aliens where you didn't have to mocap the face. This one, and from what we played, you speak to hundreds, if not 1,000 different people in this game.
Yeah.
That's too many. And just to finish up, we're going to take a quick break pretty soon. But another great thing this team of animators said that we don't consider is that, one, likely you hate the animations. Probably an animator had nothing to do with it. It was a designer and a scripter that said, we are going to make some pretty complicated things. You're going to plaster it over different characters. There's also the aspect of character creation and customization. People forget that you're able to create your own Ryders in this that help affect your sister and your dad in the game. You also create the different boundaries of the weapons that you can have in your hands and how that affects the body animation. So when there's so many different variables that are in the player's hands, it's very difficult to expect that there would be that level of visual fidelity. What do you think, Anton? We'll start with you. What do you think Bioware could have done?
Get rid of Frostbite.
Okay, so the Frostbite engine.
Yeah, I despise it. But it's not just totally unfounded. There have been a lot of games that have come out within the past year or two that have been running Frostbite and have been having issues. Like, Jesse, what game was it? It was Battlefield 1, right?
Battlefield 1 and the Zeppelin glitch. When the Zeppelin crashed, all of a sudden somebody flew into it. And this happened constantly. It would spin around like a disco ball.
Yeah, so if they totally just kind of got rid of the engine and maybe possibly dealt with mocaps, then we probably would have had a better looking game. But that doesn't solve all the problems, right?
No, I think, and that's where this comes to me, I don't want to say expertise, but the thing I care about, what I'm passionate about, is the idea that the storytelling didn't have a central thesis. You didn't really understand the motivation of what these characters were doing, why they were part of the team, why they were participating in the Andromeda initiative. And you can have characters that don't look very good, that are kind of goofy and silly. But if the words coming out of their mouths ring true, then you're still committed. Some of my favorite games have just a little icon on the screen and you're reading text. And still those words impact me more than anything I've seen so far in Mass Effect Andromeda. This is a message kind of to the people making this game, to the team of Bioware, that can make incredible products.
Oh, yeah.
That really have. A lot of people had problems with Dragon Age Inquisition. I loved it. I thought they found some truth there and had all the special sauce come together to make one piece that had something to say. Mass Effect Andromeda could have been a lot shorter. It could have been a lot narrowed. And it could have taken some chances with the different characters you had, the different stories they wanted to explore, and the different ways that they could interact with this universe. It's a real shame that BioWare rolled down the middle, and it's a shame for us because I think they thought they were making something that would appeal to everyone, off-brand Guardians of the Galaxy, if you will. But instead of finding some truth in even what Guardians of the Galaxy did, they made something that was a little banal, a little pedantic, and not of the utmost quality. We've spoken to the BioWare writers. Like, these guys know what they're doing. We've spoken to Bioware producers. They are some of the best in this industry. This game should not be this bad.
Yeah, it's a rough deal, honestly.
Yeah.
It makes me quite sad because as a guy who's played all 3 Mass Effects 3 times over, I've fallen in love with a game that's a genre that I'm not used to.
Yeah.
And going into this experience when you gave me the chance, I was excited. And then 3-4 days later, we're having conversations about how much we're not enjoying it.
It just slowly dawned on us, so to speak. We'll give you the final word, Jesse, before we go to our bonus round with the rest of the interns. We've talked about the game a lot. You've seen a lot of our online content. Go to Video Game Sophistry on YouTube to see it. How do you feel about how this game eventually came? Because you haven't played it yet, and you might not. Well, will you be jumping into it?
I'll still play it because no matter what, it's still the game that could have been something, and it wasn't. And that makes me really sad, but I still want to see what they did with it.
Okay, well, I think that is some words to live by.